Well, let's get going. First, the Anaglyph Jukebox.
Jacques Henry Lartigue. These images were rescued really twice. Once by a publisher who put this collection together, sold a number of them, and then was about to dump them. And Boris Starosta, I hope a lot of you are already familiar with wonderful photographer Boris Starosta and his work. He rescued these again. Lartigue was born to a very wealthy family in Paris. He was the first photographer to use a brownie for snapshots. He did the Eiffel Tower. He did kites. He did an amazing array of wonderfully French scenes. The music is Lena from 1926 by a composer whose name I won't even try to pronounce. Roll it, Herb.
Going to the Shepton Mallet prison, former Shepton Mallet prison. Shepton Mallet is a small market town in the southwest of England, and this prison was originally built in 1625, so before the English Civil War, and was open for nearly 400 years. It closed only in 2013. At its heyday, if you like, it had a maximum of 300 prisoners, but during the Second World War, it was taken over by the US Army, who put 768 prisoners there. It was run entirely by the Americans. It was for American service personnel who'd been committing crimes, Sadly, 18 of them were executed for capital offences, which included murder and rape or a combination of the two. Now, the prison is open as a tourist attraction. So if you're ready, Herb, please run it. Thank you.
One day a friend took me aside, said I have to leave ya for buying something from a friend. They say I've done wrong for protecting the name of a man. They say you'll have to leave ya, so now I'm bidding you farewell for much too long. And here's a song to sing for every man inside. If he can hear you sing, it's an open door. There's not a rich man there who couldn't pay his way and buy the freedom that's a high price for the poor. Kids in Texas smoking grass, 10-year sentence comes to pass. Misdemeanor in Ann Arbor, ask the judges why. Another friend said to her kids, I'm gonna have to leave ya for selling something to the man. I guess I did wrong, and although I did the best I could, I'm gonna have to leave ya. So now I'm kissing you farewell for much too long. And here's a song to sing for every man inside. If he can hear you sing, it's an open door. There's not a rich man there who couldn't pay his way and buy the freedom that's a high price for the poor.
Well, this week, Jim Harper's going to show us some of the cameras and techniques to generate the most immersive video experience. 3D VR, 180. Now, Jim used to bring all of his VR equipment to our monthly in-person meetings on Prince Street in Manhattan. Jim and Dave Comeau shared their equipment and expertise with folks who have never had the opportunity. In fact, they got me started with it. And in fact, at one time, our NYSA Presents shows were shown live in VR with the help of Jay, Jim, and Dave.
What we talk about today is a kind of a narrower aspect of what we're calling immersive photography, which is VR 180. VR 180 is basically twin fisheye photography, and the real gag with it is something Google developed. At least the term VR 180 was developed by Google Although they seem to have lost interest as they often do. You know, they were very gung-ho about VR and stuff like that around 2016. And then they kind of shrugged their shoulders and went on to the next thing. VR180, it's, as I say, it's a twin fisheye 3D, and it's designed to be viewed ideally within a VR headset. The whole idea being that we've probably seen 360 video. That was sort of the first immersive format people were using. And I'm going to share my screen. Well, yeah, and what the purpose of this here is just to talk a bit about what a VR180 image is as you view it and how it compares to other formats. And so I did this, found sort of one scene that I photographed with different cameras to provide a comparison. And you can see the very first thing I have there is a Fuji W3, just sort of a conventional stereo pair. The Fuji W3, of course, is a little telephoto. So you can see this is very much the polar opposite of what a wide angle immersive view is going to do. Now, some of the less expensive, and unfortunately VR180 gets to be a bit expensive because we need a lot of pixels in order to have an image that you can be looking around and experiencing in real time. I would say the minimum amount you need is 7680 pixels wide, which is what the CAF does. But there were some less expensive cameras. Currently, nothing's on the market, but both the Insta360 Evo and the Vuse XR were two really nice little cameras that were inexpensive. They've kind of gone up in price now because they're so people still want them. And I put that up there in this image as a comparison. That those put out, I'm not sure if the Vuse was exactly this, but 60-80 pixels wide. Honestly, it would look a little pixelated and fuzzy in a VR headset. And one of the things that's happened, as so often happens with the progress of technology, the first VR headsets, such as the Vive, didn't have really high resolution either. You were getting lots of, you were seeing lots of pixels when you're putting the VR headset itself on. So these lower resolution VR180 images looked okay in them. Now that you have the Quest 3, which is really quite a remarkably high-res screen, the Evo images don't really hold up in it. You know, it's the display technology is advanced beyond that capture technology. And there are people who will argue that even the full 8192 pixel wide images that the Canon can give you isn't really enough to give you a high resolution retinal experience when looked through a VR headset. And I thought I'd mention, you know, if anyone hasn't done this, well worth going to get an in-store demo of the Apple Vision Pro. That's Apple's very high-res VR headset, even if you'd never buy one of the things, because that's sort of your chance to really see how good this sort of format can get. They have some demos of really high-res, certainly beyond this resolution. I think they were done with custom red cameras, pairs of red fisheye cameras, rigs that would probably cost $20,000 or something. But I'll talk about the specific cameras that are available. This was sort of the first really high quality VR180 camera that was a self-contained. There were others before this. But this Canon system that came out a couple years ago, I think was the first thing that really made it possible to easily get good quality images. And this is a fairly expensive system. It has gone down a bit, but this is an EOS 5 or an EOS 5R camera. Camera itself is about $4,000 if you buy it new. The lens was about $1,500 new. They have come down a lot on the used market, and you can use these lenses with different systems. The camera that's newer that I thought was kind of the thing I really wanted to focus on is the CAF. This is the CAF camera that was released about 2 years ago. Currently on sale for $1,700. I think that's their current price for the thing. And so I've put some examples of that. That is the camera that gives you, as you can see on my little graphic here, a 7680 wide image. But I do want to point out one of the things CAF has done to keep their price down is they're not exposing the full 180-degree range. You'll notice that there's sort of like a little blurred area on the outer edges. Very visible when you see this rectilinear image here. Honestly, not that visible when you're looking in a headset because you generally don't look to the outer edges. It's almost like generally they're in your peripheral vision. So they've done kind of a clever job of leaving the peripheral stuff blurred, and you're not usually looking at that. So very often their images can be pretty satisfying to look at. The last thing that I have here on the left is the output of the Canon. And I've tried to put all these things in their relative size, just so you can sort of see what the resolution advantage is. But you'll notice that the Canon doesn't have blurred, the Canon captures the entire field of view very sharply, and it's amazing how good their images look as you look around. Oh, and I put this in the chat earlier. Let me see if I can do it again. I did create on Dropbox a couple of folders with examples from both cameras. These are what they call stitched. Stitched in VR180 just means that they've been flattened to this rectilinear format, which is what you need in a VR headset. In other words, a VR headset can't take the raw fisheye output, which is circular. It doesn't know how to let you view that. So it actually stretches it out into this. It's very similar to what's done when a globe is turned into a flat map. And that is the format that you'll look at in a VR headset. And I'm going to switch to another image. And John, please stop me if any questions come up in the chat.
No problem. Yep.
You don't hesitate to interrupt me and tell me when to stop talking, because I'll talk about this all day. But here's a look at what you get with the Canon. You can see what comes out of it. And interestingly enough, you'll see that top image is the raw output of the Canon camera. This was the Mermaid Parade, of course. It comes out cross-eye view, because as with any camera, the image is inverted by the lens when it hits the sensor, and they don't do anything. They just give you exactly what comes off the sensor when you get the image off the camera. Canon has a little utility, the Canon VR utility, which does what they call stitching. And stitching is kind of a funny word, because stitching really has to do with when we were shooting 360 videos, you'd have 6 lenses, and you would literally have to stitch those lenses in sort of a panoramic fashion. I think stitching is kind of the wrong word for VR180, because we're not stitching anything together. We're just distorting the image to make it viewable in the VR headset. But this is sort of an interesting chance to compare what the raw fisheye, how it compares to the rectilinear processed image prepared for a headset. And you'll notice that once Canon processes it, it's no longer cross-eye view, it's parallel. It's ready to go into the headset. So the view you see on the bottom is what you would put into say an Oculus Quest. If you're using an Oculus Quest, some of the apps that work really well to view these things, there's the Immer Gallery, which is I think might still be on the Quest developer store, but we had the developer of that on a while ago. Really quite amazing. There's also DOVR. I highly recommend DOVR. DOVR is sort of an attempt to create a VR immersive YouTube. It's just basically a whole series. It's mostly videos. But there are also some collections of still slides on there. But DOVR is a lot of fun. And you can also look at your own images. You can do local viewing on DOVR and use their viewer to look at the stuff. So anyway, you're seeing here the Canon, and I have one more image that I put up just as comparison. Here's what we get out of the CAF. And the CAF gives you the rectilinear image right away. In fact, I actually went in and used Stereo Photomaker. Has some very clever tools for this sort of imagery. And one of the things Stereo Photomaker lets you do is go back and forth between rectilinear and fisheye. So you can do all this right within Stereo Photomaker. And so you'll notice here, it becomes very obvious when you compare what we have here to what was on the Canon page before. You can very clearly see what CAF has left out to basically make their solution a little bit less expensive. The upper and lower part of the image is basically just stretched pixels from within the shot. But it's surprising, it looks terrible when you look at it on here, but it works surprisingly well within the VR headset. Oh, and good, Harold Bays actually put up a CAF VR180 video. So that I recommend looking at that too. One thing I want to mention about this whole thing with these cameras, obviously I'm talking mostly about stills here. For shooting video is one of the things that really makes people go to the more expensive solutions. The CAF camera does really very nice stills, very satisfying stills. And with the Canon, you could get the older Canon EOS R5, which does pretty much the same quality stills as the R5C, which was their newer one. The thing that makes these more expensive is that people feel that for seeing video in a headset, you really need 60 frames per second. And the reason for that being that you're actually sort of looking around, there's motion, you're adding motion as you look around the image, and having a slower frame rate can kind of lead to feelings of, for some people, nausea even. It's very strange having slow frame rate while you're looking around. So getting 60 frames per second at 8K is really challenging. And that's the thing that makes this particular camera so expensive, which I guess is to say that if shooting VR video, if you're interested in stills, you don't really need the more expensive Canon camera. You're going to do fine. And you'll notice CAF is coming out with a less expensive camera called the Visense, which I think is supposed to be $700. And the big difference with that is that it's only going to shoot up to 30 frames per second. So if you're really into video and VR, if you want to get really effective VR videos, you are going to need to go for the higher cost. But if you're interested in shooting stills, and I got a pair of inexpensive fisheye lenses for the Samsung NX1000s, and have shot some really fun VR 180 just with twin Samsung cameras. So you can even use a twin rig and experiment in this format. I am stopping my share because that was pretty much everything I had to share. If you're curious about this, I did put up that link. You can download a bunch of images from both the Canon and the CAF. They're mostly either pictures I took at a car show or pictures from the Mermaid Parade, but feel free to grab them. I think you can actually drag them into your Beam Pro and look at them on there. They should work right away on a Quest headset. And that'll give you a chance to see. This camera is a lot of fun, the CAF. And for the price, if you're interested in this is really a fun way to get into this. And highly recommend also looking at Harold's VR 180 video from the CAF that he's put up here. I'm going to look at it. I'm going to make sure I get it.
We're all going to look at that later.
Yeah, that should be quite a lot of fun.
Harold's got chops.
Plus
And
interesting
as you-
subject matter, which is another. I know that's not just going to be, oh, here's some flowers. I know.
Yeah, right, we're pretty much all sure of that. Now, so just follow me through this. Okay, so you shot some. Let's use the Canon and then we'll go to the CAF.
Mhm.
So you shot something with the Canon. Now, say you shot. Let's start with stills. So now what? Now you have to run through that program.
Yeah, and this is the difference. But this is a big difference between the Canon and the CAF, because with the CAF, you'll shoot either stills or video, and what comes out. And you'll notice in the image I put up, what comes out of the CAF is all ready to go. It's been converted to rectilinear. When I showed that fisheye image from the CAF, I had to convert that in Stereo Photomaker. The CAF does not give you the raw fisheye out. And I also have to say that one of the fun things I've done with the Canon, it's kind of fun doing fisheye stereo views. In other words, you don't have to use this as a VR 180 camera. Fisheye, especially if you find a really interesting, city scene, fisheye can be a great deal of fun. And you can go into Photoshop and you can crop in and, decide how big the circle you want it to be. This is giving you enough resolution to do that. But yeah, so the Canon, you have to go into their little app, or you can do it in Stereo Photomaker.
Oh, okay.
If you're wanting to view it in a headset, you do have to post-process it some. The CAF, you don't have to. CAF is ready to go.
Now, does that how is that a challenge for a regular PC, or do you have to have a revved up desktop?
The stills are not. In my experience, just about any headset, and even like the old Quest, the Quest 1, Quest 2 does just fine with stills. Video is another story. Video is where you really do, you are at the bleeding edge. Because, especially if you're running an 8K video at 60 frames a second, that's pretty demanding. The Quest 3 does very well with those. Although I think it might be dropping frames with some of them. It might be compressing a little bit. It is worth, if you're really into this, it is worth getting a super powerful, 4090 graphics card and a PC that can run it at a high, high CPU and really put on a nice headset, such as the Quest 3 actually works quite well as a PC headset with a link, but there are a couple of other high-res headsets out there. And the Apple Vision Pro, I got to hand it to them. Hasn't been, as far as I can tell, hasn't been a successful product, but that is the best experience as far as I can tell. That's your best VR 180 viewing experience, is that thing. If you really just want to see what the maximum, sort of what the future holds, go get the demo of that. It's really cool.
Listen, if I spent $3,000 or $4,000 on that, the next week they'd be down to $400. I know that. Now, I don't want to do everybody that big
It's
favor.
funny. Apple doesn't seem to have any interest. It's funny. As far as I know, they've kind of holding off on their plans, but you're not seeing them refurbed. You know, I was sort of hoping Apple would say, "Oh, okay, now we're giving you refurbed Apple Vision Pros cheap," but they seem to be trying to preserve their value on it or something. Still hope that happens, but.
Oh, did you give me that flow again? Okay, so let's say this video. So you shot the video.
Mm-hmm.
Now, how do you get it? You take out the chip. Is that a
Yeah, and that's a very good point you're bringing up, because this is one of the things with the CAF. The CAF is working at it's working at 50 frames per second as opposed to 60. And as you can see, it's a lower resolution. It's 7680 wide. Plus, it's also taking a little circle within that. So the CAF is cutting some corners, but it's so much easier to work with. You just take out your SD card and there's your video already stitched. Now you might want to put it in Premiere and color grade it or something. Whereas the Canon, you can't even use an SD card for 8K 60 frames video. It's too much data. You have to have a special external battery in order to shoot that. It won't even shoot it on its regular batteries. And you have to have this, what is the card called? It's not an SD card, it's the next thing up. It's this fairly expensive thing. I'm sorry, I should know what the name of it is.
Yeah, I figured that.
But-
No, no.
I
figured that was something fancy. Yep.
Yeah. I'm sure someone will come on. It's a CF Express card.
Yeah, CF. Wow, they
CF Express, because it's just we're talking about
Sure.
a heck of a lot of data when you're doing an 8192 pixel wide, video at 60 frames a second without a lot of compression. You're really, that's a lot of data, and so you
What's the
need a lot
capacity
of
of that?
power into the camera. And
With that CF chip? What's the capacity of that you got?
I've got a 1 terabyte. I think you can get them as much as 2 terabytes, but once you get into this, it's just everything's expensive.
Yeah. So
I save for a 1 terabyte card and I use it. And the other thing is these are huge files on this Canon. You'll use that 1 terabyte up in about 15 minutes of shooting.
shit's funny thing.
If you're trying to shoot, a whole concert, you need to invest a couple thousand in data cards. Whereas with this, once again, this is why you're seeing more and more people shooting with this, and just in terms of stuff that's on YouTube, stuff that's on DOVR. This is becoming a very popular solution because it's just so much easier to work with and so much less expensive. And it's worth just looking. I put some images for comparison. You can go on DOVR and see them. And this can still look really good if you're skillful with it. For $1,600 or whatever, you can really get in there and get something with it.
We'll stay with the Canon now, right? So now you got the video, you shot, you took a CF card, you got it into your super fancy computer.
Mm-hmm.
Now you actually have to. What happens then? I mean, is because I remember you mentioned a subscriber service or something like that with it.
Yeah, Canon has its own app that converts, that basically does the stitching. And what they have done is if you can do videos shorter than 2 minutes for free, if you want to edit video, if you want to convert videos using their utility longer than 2 minutes, and it's not exorbitant. It's something like $60 a year.
Oh wow! Yeah.
They ask a license fee from the users, and a lot of people grouse about that because you just paid $5,000 for this camera rig, and now they're like trying to hitch up for more money to process it. There was some annoyance about that. My feeling was sort of, well, I want you guys to keep doing R&D on this. I want you to keep developing it. So I guess we have to we have to make it worth your while to keep developing this technology. But yeah, even the other thing with the Canon, and once again, the difference between the Canon and the CAF, the Canon really is a professional, or it has the capacity to be a very professional video camera. It has actually a separate video mode where it lets you adjust all these curves, and you can use different, basically different codecs to record your video. And what people recommend is that you shoot in log, which is sort of like a very flat color scheme, but it just gives you a lot of options down the road where you can go into Premiere and use color grading software. But the problem with that is that you then have to do that. So instead of just taking your video out of your SD card and popping it in your headset, it ends up being like a bit of a process. And so that, once again, I think that's why for a lot of us, something like this ends up being the solution you're going to want to use, because you can spend hours getting these videos out of this Canon and getting them into
That's what I was trying to get to.
videos out of it, but it's not a quick process,
Yeah,
it's
well,
not point and shoot.
let's continue with that process. So you shot it, you took the CF card, you got it into the program.
Mhm.
And now it probably took a little time to do the stitching and stuff, right? You had to go and have a coffee, I'm thinking, no?
Oh, if it's a long video, you're probably going to wait a few hours. Yeah, I mean, 'cause
There you go. Well,
literally,
not to
it's
dinner. I'll
just
make it
like
better.
rendering video. And if you have a super powerful computer, it might be quicker. But yeah,
Okay.
it's a very intensive. It's one of those things that people use to speed test computers.
Now you-
Rendering an 8192 pixel wide video, 60 frames a second that's a lot of data, and yeah, it takes a while.
So now you got it past that. How do you actually get it into the Quest, or how do you view it? How do you get it in there?
Oh, the Quest has a folder called Movies. In other words, if your Quest is
Oh,
just
so you plug the
basically,
Quest
this
into
is
your
basically an
PC.
Android, it's as far as your computer is concerned, your Quest is just another Android phone or tablet. You plug it in, it sees the Android, gives you the folders, and one of the folders is called Movies. Now, I think this is something that comes back and forth, but for a while there was sort of a standard where you would use a special set of characters at the end of the file name, which most software would then recognize what it was. So you'll notice in the things I put up on Dropbox, they all have /180/3D as the end of the file name. So it might be called, Z173/180/3D. That is what the player sees, looks at that, and then knows, oh, this is a VR180 video. Honestly, this has not been standardized as much as I wish it was. And often in viewing these things in a Quest, you have to go in and say, oh, this is a VR180 video, because it first will show you some totally bizarre thing.
Yeah. I hate that.
So yeah, it's annoying. And I hope that over time this will become more standardized, but we are still a little bit in the early days of this. And yeah, so you might have to go in and change your settings. You might have to, fortunately, most of the Quest apps like DOVR and Immer Gallery will remember once you've toggled your video and told it, oh, this is a VR180 video, it will remember that next time you play it. So you're not doing it constantly.
Now, how did you find out about that? I mean, is there any guidance here, or you just have to be part of forums and all that stuff to figure this
Yeah,
out?
it is definitely the sort of thing where it's just forums and it's trial and error.
Almighty.
But
How you do it? No, I got your point. No,
Actually, people are pretty talkative out there. There are
generous, a lot of
Reddit
generous
and
people,
Facebook,
right.
and it's not hard to get this information, but you do have to go get it. It's a good point that a lot of it isn't, you're not going to get necessarily a manual that says, oh, here's how you view this in the Quest. Because Meta might say, well, that's not our problem. Talk to the guys at CAF. And CAF will say, it's not our problem. Talk to the guys at Meta, because this is the problem you always have when interfacing multiple technologies. But it works. It honestly does work pretty well. I mean, I don't want to give the impression that, oh, I can never do this.
You've been very fair. You've been very fair.
Really
You know, look,
but-
3/4 of this group,
Yeah.
at one time cut slides. So you understand this.
Yeah, it's
There's
easier
effort associated with
it is
everything.
easier than cutting slides. I will say that. And
So-
the other thing, just to mention about these, all this stuff is just regular JPEGs or TIFF files if you're editing them. In other words, you can the stills, you can edit them in Photoshop. You can change saturation, the levels. There's not, all the magic is done in the player that's interpreting this rectilinear file. But as far as the actual images, it's just a JPEG in Photoshop. You can change the color, you can make it black and white, you can paste something on it. You have all those creative tools are still available.
And then you
Um,
could
thing in
post
video.
those, right? And in order for other people to share them or have these, some of the sites that you explained, right? You could post them to there and other people could look at your work.
Yeah,
and you could look at theirs.
DOVR actually, a lot of
What's it
people,
called?
their
DO?
videos. Yeah,
What is it called?
DEO. It's like DEO. It's an app on Quest. It's free. You can pay a fee to get like premium videos. It's that sort of a model, but you can get in there for free. And yeah, it's quite nice. You can just go on and see what people have posted. And there's a lot of people in China and Japan seemed very interested in this whole thing. And so it's really fun for me to go and look at, oh, here I am walking around Osaka. Here I am in Tokyo crossing the street. Here I am in China looking at this city.
And
in
it
a-
is that experience too. It is that experience that you do feel like you've been there when you're done. I mean,
Yeah,
and-
so I mean, just for that, I recommend DOVR. Just go in and look at some, travel videos of Asia. Around Chinese
Okay.
New Year, there were all these wonderful videos of all those things. Really,
So-
really
so-
fun to look at.
let's move it along. So now, okay, so just get that process done. You have the thing, you shoot, and obviously if you're going to shoot, like you said, you're going to have another battery pack if you're going to shoot anything more than a couple of minutes, right?
Well, and this is the thing with the Canon. In order to shoot the maximum format, which is for video, it's 8K 8192 and it's 60 frames a second. That won't work with the camera's batteries. They don't provide enough power. So there's actually special high voltage battery packs. They're not $70.
Yeah, I gotcha.
But you need to have either that or, there's various solutions. But yeah, the Canon camera, in order to shoot that stuff, does need to have a special battery to do it. And you'll need a couple of them because it eats power. I mean, this really is, we are pushing, we are on the cutting edge of this sort of thing. It's a lot different than just taking a Fuji W3 and shooting some pictures. It's just a lot of data being
And now an off question, which is a dumb question, which I am good at.
There
Is
are
there
no
anything-
dumb questions, just dumb questioners, that's
Yeah. Where's the rim shot when you need it? Anyway, so now, is there a way to get this 360 stuff into like a loom pad or anything else, a glass?
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that because the loom pad is a phenomenal, just off the shelf for 360 3D.
Wow.
180 it'll do, but you have to fiddle with it. And I don't know if they'll ever upgrade the software, but that's really a fun thing to just drag some 360 3D videos into the loom pad. And it as long as you use that file naming, for that, I think it's /360 OU or something. Tell it that's an over under 3D. It's great fun. I don't know if you were at the 2022
Oh,
convention?
yeah,
I had
yeah.
loom pads and I had
In the room.
360 stuff. I think I did a thing where I put 3 loom pads on a stand showing the same 360 video from, it works really well. The 180 stuff, last I checked, you had to go in and tell it, oh, this is a VR mode. You had to like fiddle with it. And then you can do the same thing with 180, but I wish it would automatically sense that. They might have upgraded that. I haven't checked it in a few months, so someone correct me on the chat if I'm wrong. But you can also see 180 stuff in the loom, but you have to kind of, you have to go in and tell it, oh, this is a VR image, this is a 180 image. And then it's great fun. It really works very well for that.
That's one thing about 3D. Is there anything else that you buy in this life that you have to make friends in order to use?
Well, that's a good point.
Tell me what that thing is. Is there anything else? If you ain't got friends.
Good thing
Anything
3D
work.
people are nice because nobody would be able to use anything if we were all jerks, right?
Exactly.
Want to ask that guy?
That's why it's such an interesting group of people because
That's a good point. Yeah, you really do need to. It does help to have other people who are using this stuff to figure out how to get it going.
Okay, again, so we can wrap that up then. You shoot it, you got the card. If you're going to shoot video, you're gonna have to bring along a nuclear reactor, but that's okay, right? No, I'm only joking.
And just to be fair, that's with the Canon. With this calf, none of that. The calf.
That's why I want to get to the
point
calf.
shoot.
Yeah, I want to get
exactly.
to
The calf is none of that. So I mean,
a
it's
big
just
event. Okay,
take it out of your bag and shoot all day and watch it on your headset right away. So
So okay, good. So we're wrapping up. The Canon has more capability, and it's probably more leans towards specialized video, right? Because you're going to capture it specifically for a purpose, and it's probably going to be a profit making center if anybody makes any money at this at all. But nonetheless, that's probably what you're shooting for professional standards, right?
for sure. That is the current, other than, as I say, people who are doing this the Apple Vision Pro videos are being shot with twin red.
All that, yeah.
Apple's
Twin red, yeah. That's
Apple's
gonna do
actually
it.
releasing a VR.
You could either buy
their
a
own.
new a country house or 2 red cameras. You have the choice there. Yes.
Yeah, and Apple, I
They're
think, is
expensive.
actually making us what they're calling a spatial video camera, which is once again going to be like a $20,000 or $30,000, real. I mean, you get into as expensive as this thing is. This kind of thing is a real bargain when you look at what it's letting you do for the money. Because the next step up is like $20,000. That's your next.
Well, Jim, I still have 2, a Panasonic 3D camera. Each one of those costs me $21,000. So I still got those 3 of them sitting around. So yeah, you're packing a lot of punch in $5,000, man.
Well, yeah, it really is. I'm not saying it's not a lot of money. It is, and that's why I did want to talk about this. Is just sort of. It's still expensive. Although CAF has their new one that's on pre-order called the Visense. I don't know much about it, but it's a smaller, cheaper version of this, which I think is supposed to be $700. It's not. I don't think it's on the market yet, at least not in the USA. But I'm curious to see what I would love to see this become more of a like, oh yeah, I got one of these and I shoot with it sometimes too. As opposed to such a big deal.
I want to talk a little bit about the calf, and I have another question which I'll forget by the time we finish with the calf. So I'll save a lot of time because I'll forget it. Now okay, so now let's go with the calf. You explain it. So now there's no adjustments. You just have to kind of leverage the automatic stuff. I mean, what if you got too much light? How do you manage that?
It lets you do a EV correction, which I use a lot because very often these cameras you want them underexposing a bit because they so often will blast out spotlights and things. But yeah, that's really about it. You choose between video and stills, and that's about all you get to choose.
That's
And
okay.
exposure correction, but yeah, it just doesn't have any of the really elaborate stuff that the Canon has. It's like you take it out and you shoot with it.
Well, could you adjust how the photometer, the light meter, let's call it the light meter, it makes more sense, easier to understand.
Yeah, it has
Is it-
exposure correction. In other words, you can tell it, EV correction.
Oh,
I
just
often
EV
click a
correction.
minus third stop. But in other words, you're still on auto exposure, but at least you can tell it, please go on the dark side so that we don't blow out the highlights, you know.
So it's always on auto exposure.
As far as I know, I don't believe there is a manual. Yeah, it's pretty much that's it. You got
Yeah, why would there be? I mean, it
Yeah.
makes sense. So it's on auto, but you can adjust the exposure, which is like another way of adjusting. If maybe people don't know what cameras, there's a thing called exposure, EV exposure levels, which opens it up and closes it to stop. It's a little more klutzy to use it, right? Because you got to think,
Mhm.
and the less thinking, the better. But that's interesting. Okay. So, and now you have it. You obviously have a 2D screen, right? You're looking at a 2D screen.
Yeah, and it gives you a nice little preview screen. That is
And it's 2D. It's 2D.
Yeah, you're just seeing one.
Now, which lens are you looking at? Do you know?
I believe it's the left. You know, it's funny now that you mentioned. I'm trying to think. Does it give you a mode where you see both? It's because the with the Canon, you're seeing the fisheye. You actually, because the camera itself has no idea that it's a VR camera.
Yeah, I understand.
It's used to having nice big telephoto lenses on it. It's just you just see the exact two circles on
Because
the.
that could throw you off when you start thinking, well, what do you do for a 2-camera shoot? Well, it's VR, so 2-camera shoots are a little weird.
Yeah,
You know,
but I'm hoping I'm not giving you the wrong answer just because I use both cameras a lot, and I know with the
No, it's
camera,
okay.
you're always seeing you're always seeing the raw fisheye output of it.
that's it.
You know, that's all it's showing you, and I'm going to see. Yeah, and you know what? The CAF is always showing you. I don't know if this will be.
Yeah, I can see
CAF
it.
is always showing you the rectilinear stitched stereo output. That's what it's showing you, because it's basically doing that rectilinear conversion right in the camera.
So you
that's
could
what
free
see.
view that.
If you compare, well, let me see. Is it cross-eye view? Yeah, it's cross-eye view. You actually can cross-eye view, free view it because it's giving you a cross-eye view, and it's just giving you what's coming right under the sensor, basically.
That's a great way to fall down a flight of stairs, but at least you have a way of, and that's interesting, you know, because I do that sometimes with the X Real. What is that again? What's it called?
Yeah, the beam. Yeah.
Yeah, the Beam Pro.
One of the challenges with shooting this kind of stuff is that it can be difficult to know what you're getting in terms of what it's going to look like, you know, because what this is showing you, I think there is a way to actually connect a VR headset to the output of this. It might take some fiddling, but that is sort of the ideal way to do this, is to actually be able to have on a headset to just preview what you're getting, because
Okay, so
it's a
let me
little
go through
bit of a
that.
mystery, honestly, when you're first doing this. You don't know how close to get where you want to get. If you're shooting a model,
telling me.
there's a place, it's puzzling with these things.
Every
takes
camera's
some
got
practice.
that horrible getting used to
Yeah.
what's going to work and what's not. That's always
Mhm.
brutal. But let's go with the calf. So they do probably sell big in India, right? So yeah,
They're sacred cameras, yes.
the sacred calf's perfect. That should be the logo. So okay, so now you got the calf, right?
Mhm.
So just follow me through. So now and you're shooting a still. Still. Now it's got a regular SD card. You don't need the super powered extra muscle terabyte card, right? It's a regular card, right? Pop that out. Do like you normally do. And there's now on your computer, is there software for this? Or no, it's just coming out left and right.
I don't know if they have anything, but you don't really need anything.
That's what I
No,
meant. That's fine.
What comes out of there, you might open it in Photoshop, and I very often will open in Photoshop and adjust levels, and especially since I've shot it with a negative exposure value to try to prevent highlights, I usually have to then compensate for that in Photoshop, add back the brightness, and hopefully make sure I don't blow anything out. But yeah, no, it's ready to go. This is, and in fact, it's quite interesting. If you look on YouTube, there's a whole thing in China where they're trying to promote this as a social media format for young people, to actually like have videos of themselves dancing to pop songs, or it's sort of like another form of Instagram. I think the cameras need to get a little cheaper, but there are people who do that, who shoot
Is it a
VR
Wi-Fi?
180 videos of them dancing to their favorite Chinese pop star.
Is that a Wi-Fi enabled thing or no Wi-Fi in it?
Yes, yeah. This actually can stream.
But before we get to that, so let me go through this again. So you got your chip in there. It's got no flash and no way. Does it have a way to trigger a flash?
You
Oh,
know,
you
flash,
can't. Well, for an image, for a single image, right? You want a
flash is
flash.
kind of a tough thing with VR.
Yeah. Yes, I forgot.
We generally don't. I don't think people use it, although there might be
No.
people who figure that out. You do want to do a lot of lighting. You do want to, you know.
So you're pretty much well prone to doing stuff outside. Was it a 2.8 or something like? What is the speed of the lens? Do we know?
I think it's about that. Yeah, it's a pretty bright.
So a fast lens, right?
Yeah, and it doesn't do badly in low light. I think some of my
Look at me taking a 3D picture.
Yeah.
I'm just, that's a symbol. Either that or I'm some kind of gang. Okay, so now could you hold it up, Jim, and like ask if you were taking a picture, just please?
Yeah. So you can see it's a I
Where's
guess
the button? Where's the trigger? Where's the trigger?
the shutter is right here, the shutter button, and you can see I'm seeing twin rectilinear shots. So yeah, I can. Oh, I'm shooting video, and this is the one thing that's a little tricky with is you have to go in and tell it what mode it's in, and it takes like a little touch screen. It has a touch screen on the back, and you got to be very careful to tell it what you
What's
want.
that little knob on the top in the middle?
This is the power knob. Oh, and this thing I put in a level, a little bubble level.
Level.
And this is the thing that's worth mentioning for VR 180. The general, I actually just want to mention, I posted Harold's link. John Christopher was asking, does anyone have any good video shot with this? So I hope Harold doesn't mind. I just posted his link. But yeah, bubble level, because VR 180, ideally the camera should be completely level. And the other thing with it that is worth mentioning is that these lenses really are capturing the full sphere, which means you really don't want your finger in front of this thing. And in fact, the way most people work with it, I actually got a little slide bar from Dr. T at one of the conventions, but you generally want the camera sticking out in front of the tripod as much as you're comfortable with. So I usually have it on a slide bar going out about 6 inches in front of the tripod, because it's
that could be
the tripod legs. It's going to pick up, you want to give it as clean of an environment around you as possible, because it is getting everything.
well, I know with the Beam Pro, I thought I was like hanging my fingers over, but I wasn't. I mean, I'm talking like a little bit over the edge. Yeah. So I realized I got to be
Beam Pro is
way
pretty
back.
wide. I mean, it's not as wide as this, but it is actually a fairly
Yeah.
wide angle
You gotta-
experience too.
Okay, so again, just to process, and we'll get on to other things. And I looked at. I hope Harold stuck around, because I'll leave him to the after party, because there's some questions I'm sure he's going to be answered, because he's
And John
shooting with-
Christopher's put up some helpful comments about like how Apple's actually shooting their stuff, which is great to know. They're
So,
using
yeah,
Black Magic Ursa Cine.
yeah, those are legit. Thank you, John. Okay, so again, you shoot your pictures, you take it out, and now you have a rectilinear, because it did the work inside.
Yeah,
right?
it's already done. Yeah.
I like to say that word. I sound like so much smarter. It's great. Okay, the regular. So now it's a JPEG side by side, right? Now,
Mhm.
otherwise, the video is like a side by side squunched. What is
MP4.
that?
It's basically just the same format, only video, and it's MP4s.
It's an MP4, and then you could take that, like you said, and you could get it through into your either into those fancy glasses, right? The X Pro things, right?
Yeah, you can play those back on there. I haven't done much of that yet. It's something I've been wanting to try. But there is an app on the Beam Pro that's designed to look at immersive content. And my usual choice is the Quest 3, which just does a really
which is going to give you
very
the better.
easy, and it's very automatic.
I have other questions, but there's other people, as it turns out.
Mhm.
I hope is Harold around anywhere? Somebody, maybe we should co-host Harold. I hope he's stuck around, because I would love to see his take on it, because he's shooting stuff, right?
Yeah, and Burning Man, I'm sure, was a really nice subject for this. Yeah, and he's got a calf, so that he might have some other tips or ideas about how to effectively use it. But for the money, it's a really nice solution if you're interested in immersive stuff.
I'm gonna thank you, Jim, because that I think I have a few other questions, but I'm gonna let other people do that. I think we should hear from Harold. I think Harold's gonna be. I gave you host stuff. I made you a host, Harold. So if you want to talk, that's fine.
And,
Sorry for hooking you in here, man.
In case anyone's new on here, I'm just once again repasting. I just put up on Dropbox, just if anyone was curious to see the output of these two cameras, just some stills from the Canon and some stills from the CAF that I took, which you can take these, you can drag them into a Quest headset. I think you can drag them onto a Beam Pro if you're familiar with that app. You can put them on a loom pad with some fiddling. But anyway, just I wanted to have some supporting materials if anyone's curious to
Oh,
compare.
you're great. You were great, Jim.
So
You
there you
were
are.
absolutely phenomenal. You had like 60 people checking this out. But before we head out, Harold, could you unmute yourself for a second before
We might need to ask him to unmute. I'm not sure. Do we need to ask Harold?
I
to
made
unmute?
him there he goes. He's done.
Oh, okay, cool.
Hello. Unmuted.
Hey man, I miss you. Haven't spoken to you in a while. How are you doing?
So you're a calf guy, huh?
Oh yeah. Yeah, it's pretty good for, what it costs and what it can do. I like it.
Now, I'm curious, do you do anything to your videos after you shoot them? In other words, are you running them into Premiere or doing any sort of fixing up of the videos after they come out?
DaVinci Resolve.
Mm-hmm.
But I just edit it as regular video. I don't edit it as stereo.
Mm-hmm.
You don't need to really.
Yeah, because it's all there, right? It's side by side, it's rectilinear, it's all.
But something I did for, I have a couple of videos up from a performance of the Black Rock Philharmonic, which is a symphony orchestra that gets together at Burning Man and performs music. So I just happened to drop in. I had not used the Calf before to do video editing like that. And I brought a monopod, which unfortunately had feet that were broken. So I only had a monopod, and I was painted silver, and of course, and I was, for the whole performance, I had to hold that pole as still as possible in order to
Egad.
hold it.
We've all been there before. It's nothing like that. Taking those little breaths.
Yeah, any movement at all.
Any movie.
It's
that-
disturbing. Yeah,
Was that inside or outside?
outside.
Outside. So yeah, the daytime had a lot of light.
Yeah, pretty good light. I mean, it was just actually the sun was setting, which was interesting.
Okay, so you had a golden hour. So you had that kind of light. Interesting. Were you satisfied with what you got?
Yeah, I thought it worked out pretty well. And if you watch the videos on DEO VR, I learned how to put some titles in it. I put titles in it by using Blender to make 3D objects of the words, of the text. And then I used green screen to put that into the scene.
Oh, how clever. See how clever, man. Okay, it makes
Because Blender can render
understood.
a VR 180 image. So
Egad. Well, thank you for chiming in, Harold. I'm sure people will have questions for you. I know whatever it is, I'm sure you got some nice shots. Maybe I'll be inspired to put that the helmet on later on. Now, how do I find this? I go to, and maybe other people might want to know that. What is it?
Yeah, I put a link in the
Part
chat to my channel where I have 4 videos.
Now you get to your channel through the helmet, through the VR thing, right?
Yeah, well, you open the DEO VR app in your Quest, and then
Got it.
Yeah.
And then you call you because it's not working, and then you'll
Now,
tell me how to make
are
it
your
work.
videos, are they on the premium tier yet, or are they, or 'cause I know
no,
they'll
they're-
put the really cool videos, you have to pay them a little fee to be able to see them, which I bet some
Right.
viewers they're gonna end up.
Yeah, well, I hope if they get too popular, then they'll make them premium, which would be nice.
Right.
But
Right.
I
Joe used to-
pop up the money, so I'll be able to watch them anyway. So that's good to know.
Well, thank you, Jim, and thank you, Harold Silverman, shall I say? Well, you weren't in costume today. Unfortunately, I am. But thank you for chiming in. It's really helpful because this is a really complicated thing, and we know it's the only hobby or profession that you can't do without friends. It's just fucking beautiful. I just love it, man. You gotta have friends, or forget it. You're better off learning how to chisel pictures with into a rock. Anyway.
New York, so good they named it twice. New York, all the scandal and the vice. I love it, New York, now is a new about New York.